Shadows twist across crumbling brick walls, cast by a flickering street lamp that buzzes like a dying insect. Cold seeps through the thin fabric of Jake's jacket. A 12-year-old boy too small for his age, his frame whittled down by hunger. His stomach gnaws at itself, a relentless beast that hasn't tasted fullness in days. He crouches beside a rusted trash can, fingers trembling as they sift through the refuse. A treasure emerges, a half-eaten sandwich stale and smeared with grime. To Jake, it's salvation. He lifts it to his lips, breath quickening, when a faint sound pierces the silence. A whimper, soft and broken, drifts from the darkness. His eyes dart toward the noise. There, huddled against a pile of sodden cardboard, sits a stray dog. Its fur hangs in clumps, matted with filth, its ribs jutting out like the bars of a cage. The dog stares at Jake, eyes wide and pleading, mirroring the boy's own quiet desperation. Jake freezes. The sandwich hovers inches from his mouth. He could devour it, silence the ache in his gut, and move on. But something stirs within him, a flicker of warmth long buried beneath the weight of survival. He remembers nights spent shivering alone, wishing for a hand to reach out. With a shaky breath, he tears the sandwich in two and extends half to the dog. The creature inches forward, hesitant, then snatches the offering with delicate jaws. They eat in silence, boy and dog, bound by a fleeting moment of shared need. The wind howls, carrying the crunch of footsteps. Jake's head snaps up. 3 figures emerge from the gloom, older boys with hardened faces and cruel intent etched into their sneers. They circle like vultures, eyes glinting with malice. One kicks an empty can, the clang echoing off the walls. They spot the dog and laugh, a sound that chills Jake's blood. He scrambles to his feet, stepping in front of the stray, fists clenched despite the tremble in his hands. The leader lunges, grabbing for the dog. Jake shoves back, a wild spark igniting in his chest. Chaos erupts. Fists fly, boots stomp, and the dog yelps as it's yanked from the ground. Jake fights, small and fierce, but he's no match. A siren wails in the distance, sharp and sudden. The older boys falter, then bolt, dropping the dog in their haste. Jake scoops the trembling creature into his arms, heart pounding, and stumbles into the night. Unseen in the dirt behind him lies a locket, slipped from his pocket, its faint gleam swallowed by the shadows. Morning breaks over the city, a gray haze smearing the horizon. Jake trudges through the streets, the dog trotting at his heels. He names it Buddy, a whispered promise of companionship. They weave through alleys and abandoned lots, scavenging for scraps, their bond growing with every shared glance. Jake's fingers brush Buddy's matted fur, and for the first time in years, loneliness ebbs. Memories claw at him as they walk. He sees his parents' faces, warm and alive, before the screech of tires and the shattering of glass stole them away. Orphaned at 10, he endured foster homes where hands struck harder than words. He fled, choosing the streets over chains, but the solitude carved a hollow in his soul. Now, with Buddy beside him, that hollow begins to fill. They settle beneath a bridge, the rumble of traffic overhead a distant lullaby. Jake's hand rests on Buddy's back, feeling the dog's heartbeat, steady and alive. He recalls the previous night, the sandwich split in two, and wonders if kindness might hold power he's never known. Sleep claims him, but not before a spark of hope ignites, fragile yet fierce. The next day shifts everything. While rummaging through a dumpster, Jake's fingers close around a wallet, thick with cash and bearing an ID. The face on the card belongs to an older man, stern yet kind-eyed, with an address in the city's wealthy district. Jake hesitates. Returning it means risk, exposure, but also possibility. He looks at Buddy, who tilts his head as if urging him on. Decision made, they set off. The mansion looms like a fortress, its gates towering and cold. Jake's pulse races as he presses the bell. A butler appears, disdain curling his lip, but takes the wallet and vanishes. Moments later, the door swings wide, revealing Mr. Thompson. The man's gaze softens as he spots Buddy, recognition flaring in his eyes. He kneels, hands outstretched, and Buddy bounds forward, tail wagging furiously. Mr. Thompson's voice trembles with relief. "Max," he calls the dog, "lost weeks ago and now returned." Jake's chest tightens. Buddy is Max, someone else's companion. Yet Mr. Thompson turns to him, gratitude shining through grief-weary lines. He invites Jake inside, offers food, a place to rest. The boy steps across the threshold, uncertain but drawn by the promise of warmth. Over a meal, Mr. Thompson learns of Jake's past, the accident, the streets. Compassion colors his words. He offers Jake a home, a chance to stay. Jake accepts, wary hope blooming anew. Weeks pass in a blur of adjustment. Jake attends school, excels despite the gaps in his learning. Buddy remains his anchor, their evenings spent by the fire, a silent pact of loyalty forged between them. Mr. Thompson watches, a man haunted by loss, finding solace in this makeshift family. But shadows linger. Mr. Slade, Mr. Thompson's business partner, prowls the edges of their peace, his cold eyes fixed on Jake with growing suspicion. Tension thickens like storm clouds. Mr. Slade's visits grow frequent, his presence a blade hovering over Jake's fragile world. The man's disdain is palpable, his words to Mr. Thompson laced with venom. He questions Jake's place, calls him a liability, a threat to their dealings. Mr. Thompson stands firm, but Jake feels the weight of those accusations pressing down. One afternoon, curiosity pulls Jake to a hidden corner of the mansion. A bookcase shifts under his touch, revealing a secret room. Inside, crates stack high, brimming with contraband, drugs, weapons, secrets that reek of danger. His breath catches. Mr. Slade's shadow looms larger now, a criminal threading his schemes through Mr. Thompson's unknowing empire. Buddy growls, sensing the shift, and Jake moves to retreat. Footsteps echo. Too late. Mr. Slade steps into the room, flanked by two rough men, their faces carved from stone. His sneer twists into something darker as he spots Jake. Accusations spill forth, sharp and cutting. The henchmen advance. Jake's heart hammers. Buddy lunges, teeth sinking into flesh, a fierce guardian unleashed. Chaos reigns. Jake breaks, free, bolting through the mansion, Buddy racing beside him. They dive into a secret passage, a lifeline Mr. Thompson once revealed in jest. It spits them into the gardens where they crouch among thorns, breath ragged. The henchmen scour the grounds, voices barking orders. Jake clutches Buddy, mind reeling. He must warn Mr. Thompson, expose the rot festering within. Night falls heavy. Jake slips back inside, determination stealing his spine. He finds Mr. Thompson slumped in his study, a bottle of pills spilled across the desk. Panic seizes him. He shakes the man, calls his name, but no response comes. The butler rushes in, summoned by Jake's cries, and an ambulance screeches to the scene. Doctors murmur of overdose, but Jake's gut screams sabotage. Mr. Slade's hand, unseen yet certain. With Mr. Thompson hospitalized, Mr. Slade seizes control, his grip tightening like a noose. Jake stands alone, a boy against a titan, Buddy his only shield. Evidence lies buried somewhere in the mansion, a key to unraveling this nightmare. He resolves to find it, to fight, though fear gnaws at his edges. The stakes rise, a tide of peril pulling him under. Darkness cloaks the city, a shroud for Jake's desperate gamble. Mr. Slade's office beckons, a den of secrets. Jake creeps through the mansion, Buddy a silent shadow at his side. The door creaks open, revealing a desk strewn with papers, a laptop glowing faintly. Jake's fingers fly, searching for proof when a noise freezes him. Footsteps, deliberate and close. Mr. Slade enters, eyes narrowing to slits. He holds a leash, and at its end, Buddy struggles, bound and muzzled, stolen moments before from the gardens. Jake's blood boils. Mr. Slade's voice drips with menace, promising silence, permanent and cold. He signals, and a henchman lunges. Jake dodges, grabbing a letter opener, a pitiful weapon against giants. The room explodes into violence. Jake slashes, ducks, fights with a ferocity born of love. Buddy thrashes, snapping the leash, and leaps into the fray. Teeth meet flesh, a howl of rage and loyalty. Mr. Slade stumbles, clutching a bitten arm as Jake scrambles for the laptop. He yanks it free, clutching it like a lifeline, and bolts. The chase ignites. Through corridors, downstairs, the mansion a labyrinth of peril. Mr. Slade and his men pursue, relentless, their shouts ringing like thunder. Jake bursts into the night, Buddy at his heels, the laptop a beacon of hope. They sprint toward the U. Gates but headlights flare, blinding and sudden. A car screeches to a halt, pinning them in its glare. Mr. Slade emerges, a gun gleaming in his hand. Jake skids to a stop, chest heaving, nowhere left to run. The man advances, a predator savoring. The kill. Buddy growls, low and fierce, planting himself between Jake and death. Time slows. Mr. Slade raises the weapon, finger tightening, when sirens split the air. Red and blue lights flood the scene, police swarming from the shadows. The butlers call, a quiet act of faith, summons salvation. Mr. Slade falters, caught in the floodlights as officers close in. Jake thrusts the laptop forward, its contents a noose around the criminal's neck. Cuffs snap shut, and Mr. Slade's empire crumbles, his threats silenced by the weight of justice. Dawn paints the sky in hues of gold, a new beginning unfurling. Jake sits by Mr. Thompson's hospital bed, the man's eyes fluttering open, weak but alive. Doctors confirm the sabotage, Mr. Slade's poison undone by Jake's courage. Gratitude shines in Mr. Thompson's gaze, a father's pride for a son forged in fire. Weeks later, the adoption papers seal their bond. The mansion transforms, no longer a fortress but a home, its halls echoing with Jake's laughter and Buddy's playful barks. Mr. Thompson heals, his grief softened by the family he's reclaimed. Jake excels, school a stepping stone to dreams. Once unthinkable, Buddy ever at his side. One evening, Jake stands on the porch, the city sprawling below. Buddy rests beside him, head on his lap, a symbol of loyalty unbroken. He traces the path from that alley, the shared meal that sparked it all, and marvels at fate's strange dance. A single act of kindness, a boy and a dog against the world, and now this, a life reborn. The stars glitter, vast and endless. Jake's voice whispers into the night, a vow to never forget. He wonders aloud, a question for the universe. What might one small choice unleash? The thought lingers, a gift to those who listen. The tale ends, but echoes remain. If this story stirred your heart, let it spread. Share it, cherish it, hold it close. More adventures await, whispers of mysteries hidden in the mansion's depths, calling Jake and Buddy onward. What would you do if a stray crossed your path, hungry and alone? Would you share your last meal and risk everything for the bond that follows? The choice is yours.